I never thought I'd be grateful for cancer. That sounds insane, doesn't it? But sitting here in my apartment, watching the morning light filter through the curtains while Marcus sleeps beside me, his hand still loosely holding mine even in sleep, I can't help but think about how I would never have met him if my body hadn't betrayed me. If those cells hadn't mutated and multiplied and forced me to confront my own mortality at 28 years old. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Isn't it strange how the worst moments of your life happen on the most ordinary days? I remember sitting in Dr. Patterson's office, staring at the degrees on her wall while she explained what stage 3 lymphoma meant. Her mouth kept moving, but all I could hear was this rushing sound in my ears, like I was underwater. She handed me pamphlets. Actual pamphlets. Like cancer was a vacation destination I needed to research. I called my mom from the parking lot, told her while sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. She cried. I didn't. I couldn't. The tears would come later, in the shower mostly, where the sound of running water could mask the sounds I made. But in that moment, I just felt numb, hollow. The thing about cancer that nobody tells you is how it strips away everything you thought you were. I'd spent my entire 20s building this identity, the guy who hit the gym 5 times a week, the marketing consultant who wore tailored suits and closed deals, the son who made his parents proud by being successful and independent and never causing trouble, especially never causing trouble by being too obviously gay. I'd perfected the art of existing in that comfortable middle ground, not closeted, but not exactly out either. Don't ask, don't tell, live a quiet life. Chemotherapy doesn't care about your carefully constructed identity. It takes your hair first. I watched it fall out in clumps in the shower, circling the drain like everything I used to be was washing away. Then it took my energy, my appetite, my dignity. There's nothing like vomiting into a hospital toilet at 3 a.m. to make you realize how small and fragile you really are. My friends tried to visit at first. They'd show up with flowers and uncomfortable smiles, sitting on the edge of the visitor's chair in my hospital room like they might catch something. The conversations were stilted, full of empty reassurances. You've got this, man. Stay positive. You're so strong. They meant well, but their discomfort was palpable. One by one, they stopped coming. I don't blame them. Death scares people, especially when it's wearing the face of someone their own age. That's when I met Marcus, 6 weeks into treatment, on a day when I felt particularly sorry for myself. I was in the oncology wing for my regular infusion, sitting in one of those recliners they have lined up in rows, poison dripping into my veins through the port in my chest. I'd learned to bring my laptop to pretend I could work, though mostly I just stared at the screen and tried not to think about the nausea building in my stomach. He walked in wearing scrubs, but he wasn't a nurse. I'd memorized all the nurses by then. He was carrying a guitar case, of all things, and he had this presence about him. Not loud or demanding, just solid, real. He had dark hair that curled slightly at the ends, warm brown eyes, and this gentle way of moving through the room like he belonged there. Mind if I play something? He asked the room in general. His voice was deeper than I expected, with a slight rasp to it that made every word feel intimate. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who always sat in the recliner by the window, smiled and nodded. Please, dear. Something cheerful. He settled onto a stool someone brought him and started playing. I don't even remember what the song was, just that his fingers moved across the strings with practiced ease, and his voice when he sang was full of warmth and hope, and all the things that felt absent from my life. I found myself watching him instead of my laptop screen, watching the way he closed his eyes when he hit certain notes, the small smile that played at his lips, the way he seemed completely unselfconscious about sharing this gift. When he finished, he made his way around the room, talking to each patient. Not the forced cheerfulness of visitors, but genuine conversation. He asked Mrs. Chen about her grandchildren. He discussed baseball with the older man who always wore a Yankees cap. And then he got to me. I'm Marcus, he said, extending his hand. I volunteer here a couple times a week. Music therapy, though that makes it sound more official than it is. Really, I just like playing for people. I shook his hand. His grip was warm, firm. Daniel, and that was nice. The music. You play? He asked, nodding at my laptop. No, I just work, or pretend to work. I gestured at the IV line. Turns out it's hard to focus on marketing reports when you're being pumped full of chemicals. He laughed, and it wasn't the uncomfortable laugh I'd gotten used to. It was genuine, like I'd said something actually funny instead of something depressing. Yeah, I can imagine that's distracting. What kind of marketing? We talked for maybe 15 minutes. He didn't ask about my cancer, didn't offer any platitudes about staying strong. He just talked to me like I was a person, not a patient. Asked about my work, told me about his job as a social worker at a youth center across town. The volunteer music thing was just something he did because his mom had died in this same hospital 5 years ago, and playing for patients made him feel connected to her somehow. That's beautiful, I said, and meant it. I'm sorry about your mom. Thanks. Cancer too. Breast cancer. He said it matter-of-factly, not looking for sympathy. It's part of why I do this. I remember how much the little things mattered when she was going through treatment. Someone bringing her favorite coffee, a visitor who didn't treat her like she was already dead, music. After he left, I felt different, lighter somehow. Like for 20 minutes, I'd been allowed to be Daniel again instead of Daniel the cancer patient. He came back the next week, and the week after that. We started talking more, our conversations extending longer each time. He told me about the kids he worked with, runaways and LGBTQ youth who'd been kicked out by their families. His eyes lit up when he talked about them, about helping them find housing and resources and hope. I told him about my life before cancer, about the career I'd built, the apartment I'd decorated, the version of myself I was trying to hold on to. You talk about it like it's past tense, he observed one day, like that person doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't he? I gestured at myself. I'd lost 30 pounds by then. My face was gaunt, my eyes hollow. The hospital gown swallowed my frame. I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his fingers absently plucking at his guitar strings. My mom said something to me near the end. She said cancer had taken her breasts, her hair, her strength, but it couldn't take who she was. That was something she got to decide. That's easier said than done, I said, harsher than I meant to. I know. His eyes met mine, and there was understanding there, not pity, just recognition. But maybe it's also true. I started looking forward to his visits more than I wanted to admit. On the weeks he came, I made sure to shower, to wear actual clothes instead of pajamas. I told myself it was about dignity, about not letting cancer win. But really, it was about him, about wanting him to see me as something more than just another sick person in a recliner. 3 months into treatment, on a particularly bad day when the nausea was overwhelming and I couldn't stop shaking, Marcus sat with me. Not in the visitor's chair, but on the floor beside my recliner, his back against the wall, just being present. He didn't try to cheer me up or tell me it would get better. He just sat there, occasionally humming softly, and somehow that was exactly what I needed. Thank you, I whispered, when I could finally speak without feeling like I might throw up. For what? For not leaving. Everyone else has. He looked up at me, and something shifted in his expression. I'm not going anywhere, Daniel. Not unless you tell me to. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Not cancer trouble, though that was still very much a thing. But the kind of trouble where your heart starts doing things you haven't given it permission to do. Where you find yourself thinking about someone during the long nights when sleep won't come. Where the sound of a particular voice becomes the best part of your week. I was falling for him. In the middle of fighting for my life, while my body was being destroyed and rebuilt by poison and radiation, while I looked like a skeleton and could barely walk from my bed to the bathroom without getting winded, I was falling in love with a man who saw me at my absolute worst and chose to stay anyway. The realization terrified me. I'd dated before, casual things mostly. A few hookups through apps, one semi-serious relationship that fizzled out after 6 months. I'd never let myself really fall, never trusted anyone enough to see past the carefully maintained exterior, and now here I was, completely vulnerable, completely exposed, and my heart was doing backflips for a straight volunteer who probably just saw me as another patient to feel sorry for. Except, I wasn't sure he was straight. There were moments, small things, the way his eyes lingered sometimes, how he'd touch my shoulder when he said goodbye, his hand staying a beat longer than necessary, The time he brought me my favorite coffee without me having to ask, because he'd remembered a throwaway comment I'd made weeks ago. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Or maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. Cancer and chemo brain made everything fuzzy, unreliable. 4 months in, I finished my last scheduled chemotherapy session. Dr. Patterson was cautiously optimistic. The tumors had shrunk significantly. We'd do more scans, more tests, but it looked like the treatment was working. I should have been elated. Instead, I felt lost. The routine of treatment had given my life structure, purpose. And now what? Go back to my apartment and wait to see if the cancer came back? Try to rebuild a career I'd abandoned? Figure out who Daniel was supposed to be now? Marcus found me in the hospital cafeteria that day, staring at a cup of coffee I had no intention of drinking. "Heard it was your last session," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "That's amazing, Daniel." "Is it?" The words came out bitter. "I don't feel amazing. I feel terrified." "Of what?" "Everything. What if it comes back? What if I can't go back to work? What if I've forgotten how to be a normal person?" I paused. "What if I don't see you anymore?" I hadn't meant to say that last part. It slipped out, raw and honest, and I couldn't take it back. Marcus went very still. "Is that something you want?" he asked quietly. "To keep seeing me?" My heart was pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. This was it. The moment where I could retreat, make a joke, pretend I meant it platonically. Or I could be brave. Cancer had taken almost everything from me. Maybe it was time to take something back. "Yes," I said, "not as my volunteer musician, as you, just you." The silence stretched between us, and I watched his face, trying to read his expression. Then slowly, so slowly, a smile spread across his features. Not the gentle, professional smile I was used to. Something real and warm and a little bit nervous. "I've been waiting for you to say something like that for 2 months, he admitted. "But I didn't know if it was appropriate, given everything you're going through. I didn't want to take advantage or make things complicated when you needed to focus on getting better." "You've been waiting?" I couldn't quite process this. "But you never said anything, never gave any sign." "Neither did you," he pointed out. "And I wasn't sure. You're always so composed, so controlled. Even going through hell, you maintain this wall. I couldn't tell if you were interested or just being friendly." I laughed, and it felt good. When was the last time I'd really laughed? "Marcus, I've looked like death warmed over for 4 months. I've been bald and skeletal and constantly nauseous. If I was maintaining any kind of composure around you, it was because I was trying desperately not to let you see how much I looked forward to your visits, how much you mattered." He reached across the table and took my hand. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, and the simple touch sent electricity through me. "You're beautiful," he said, and the way he said it, I almost believed him. "Not in spite of what you've been through, because of it, because I've watched you fight and struggle and refuse to give up, because you're real with me in a way I don't think you are with anyone else. That's beautiful, Daniel." We had our first date 3 weeks later, after I'd had time to recover some strength. He picked me up from my apartment, and I spent 2 hours beforehand trying to find something to wear that didn't hang off my frame like a tent. Settled on jeans and a sweater, simple but comfortable. I was still weak, still tired easily, but I was determined. He took me to a quiet Italian restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and soft lighting. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs to support them, about discovering he was gay in high school and having her be his biggest supporter, about losing her and feeling untethered, like he'd lost his anchor, about finding purpose in helping others, in using his pain to connect with people who were hurting. I told him about my family, about being the golden child who did everything right, about the fear of disappointing them that had kept me from really living authentically, about building a successful career but feeling empty, about how cancer had stripped away all the pretense and left me with nothing but the truth of who I really was, and how terrifying and liberating that felt. "So, who are you?" he asked. "Really?" I thought about it. "I'm still figuring that out, but I think I'm someone who's learning to be brave. Someone who's learning that being vulnerable isn't the same as being weak. Someone who's falling in love with a social worker who plays guitar and sees beauty in broken things. His eyes widened slightly. Love? Too soon? My heart was racing again. I can take it back. Don't you dare. He reached across the table and took both my hands in his. I'm falling too. Have been since the day you told me about your marketing reports and looked at me like I was a real person instead of just another hospital volunteer. You have no idea how rare that is, Daniel. How rare you are. Our first kiss happened in the parking lot, leaning against his car under the streetlights. It was gentle and sweet and tasted like the tiramisu we'd shared for dessert. His hands cupped my face like I was something precious, and I felt more alive in that moment than I had in months, maybe years. The next few months were a strange balance of recovery and new relationship energy. I had regular scans and checkups, each one bringing a fresh wave of anxiety. What if the cancer was back? What if this reprieve was temporary? Marcus held my hand through all of it, sat with me in waiting rooms, celebrated with me when the scans came back clear. He was patient with my limitations. Some days I was too tired to do anything but lie on the couch. Some days the anxiety was overwhelming. Some days I looked at my changed body in the mirror and felt like a stranger. He met me where I was, never pushing, never demanding more than I could give. I'm not going to break, I told him one night, about 2 months into our relationship. We were at his place, watching a movie, and he'd been careful not to hold me too tight, like I might shatter. I know, he said, but I also know you're still healing. I don't want to rush you. Marcus. I shifted to face him. I have cancer. Had cancer. Maybe still have cancer. We don't really know for sure yet. That's going to be my reality for years, maybe forever. If you wait for me to be completely healed, completely past this, you're going to be waiting a long time. I need you to be with me now, in this, not waiting for some future version of me that might never exist. Something in his expression shifted. You're right, I'm sorry. I think I've been so focused on not adding to your stress that I forgot you might need normal too. Need to feel like this is real and not just me being careful with the sick guy. I need you to want me, I said quietly. Not carefully, not gently, just really want me. He kissed me then, and it was different from before, deeper, more urgent. His hands moved over my body with purpose, and yes, I was still too thin, still had scars from the port and the biopsies, but he touched me like I was desirable anyway, like my body was something to celebrate, not something to be careful around. We made love that night for the first time, and it was messy and awkward and perfect. I cried after, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion, and the realization that I was still capable of this, of pleasure and connection and intimacy. Marcus held me and didn't ask questions, just let me feel everything I needed to feel. 6 months after my last chemo session, my scans came back completely clear, no evidence of disease. Dr. Patterson used the word remission, and I sat in her office and finally let myself cry with relief instead of fear. Marcus was waiting in the parking lot, and when I told him, he picked me up and spun me around, both of us laughing like idiots. We should celebrate, he said. Dinner, dancing, whatever you want. I want to tell my parents about you, I said. The words surprised me as much as they surprised him. I want to stop hiding, stop living in that middle ground. I want them to know that I'm gay and I'm in love, and that's not something to be ashamed of. He set me down carefully, searching my face. Are you sure? That's a big step, Daniel. You don't have to do it for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Cancer taught me that life's too short to live it for other people's comfort. I almost died without ever really living. I don't want to do that anymore. We drove to my parents' house that weekend. I was terrified the entire drive, my hands shaking, but Marcus kept one hand on my thigh, steady and grounding. My parents were surprised to see us, surprised that I'd brought someone with me. We sat in their living room, the same living room where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to be the perfect son. And I told them I was gay, told them about Marcus, told them I was done pretending to be someone I wasn't. My dad was quiet for a long time. My mom cried, but I couldn't tell if it was from sadness or something else. Finally, my dad spoke. We knew, he said. We've known for years, Daniel. We just didn't know how to talk about it, how to tell you it was okay. You knew? I couldn't process this, but you never said anything. You let me think I had to hide. We were wrong, my mom said, wiping her eyes. We thought we were giving you space to figure things out on your own. We didn't realize we were making you feel like you couldn't be yourself around us. And then you got sick, and all we cared about was you surviving. And we should have told you then, but we didn't want to add more stress, and we just kept putting it off. Marcus squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, overwhelmed. So, you're okay with this? I gestured between Marcus and myself. With me being gay? Daniel. My dad's voice was thick with emotion. We almost lost you. Do you really think we care who you love, as long as you're here and you're happy? We just want you to live. Really live. We talked for hours that day, clearing away years of misunderstanding and assumption. They asked Marcus about himself, welcomed him into the family with a warmth that made me realize how much energy I'd wasted being afraid. My mom hugged him and thanked him for being there for me during treatment, for making me smile again. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years, maybe ever. Thank you, I told Marcus, for giving me the courage to do that. You've always had the courage, he said. You just needed a reason to use it. Now, a year later, I'm lying in bed watching him sleep. My hair has grown back, darker and curlier than before. I've gained back most of the weight I lost. I'm back at work part-time, slowly rebuilding my career. I still have scans every 3 months, still hold my breath waiting for results, still have moments of panic when I feel tired or notice a bruise. But I also have this. I have Marcus, who moved in 6 months ago and fills my apartment with music and laughter. I have parents who call to check on both of us, who invite us to family dinners and don't flinch when we hold hands at the table. I have a life that feels authentic and real and mine. Cancer took almost everything from me. My health, my hair, my sense of invincibility, my carefully constructed identity. It stripped me down to nothing and forced me to rebuild from scratch. And in that rebuilding, in that forced vulnerability, I found something I'd been missing my whole life. I found the courage to be truly myself. I found love. I found Marcus. He stirs beside me, his eyes opening slowly. When he sees me watching him, he smiles that sleepy smile I've come to know so well. Morning, he murmurs. How long have you been awake? Not long, just thinking. About what? About how grateful I am, for all of it, even the hard parts, because they led me here, to you, to us. He pulls me closer, and I rest my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, strong and steady and real. I love you, he says, like he does every morning, like he'll never get tired of saying it. I love you too, I reply, and mean it with everything I am. Outside, the city is waking up. Inside, we stay in bed a little longer, holding on to this moment, this peace, this life we've built together from the ashes of everything I lost. Cancer tried to take everything, but in the end, it gave me the one thing I'd been too afraid to reach for on my own. It gave me him, and that makes all of it, every painful moment, worth it. Total char count, 24,847.